Hey guys, hello friends. Let me see, I'm a little crooked. There you go. Hello, Radical Transformation family. I wanted to share with you guys, I was just doing a little bit of reflecting in my journal, and I wanted to kind of share this little story with you guys that happened to me last night in case any of you guys can relate to it. Anybody with anxiety, if you struggle with asking for support. I have had anxiety for a really long time. I get it a lot of fear and anxiety and just kind of anxious feelings come up when I start dating someone new. I've been in an abusive relationship and a lot of very unhealthy relationships. And so a lot of times when I start dating someone new, it's kind of like all this stuff starts to come up to the surface, right? And even if you haven't had those kinds of experiences, I'm sure you can relate where it's like, you know, you'll go through an event or something will happen and it brings up your stuff, right? Your stuff starts coming up to the surface. And so I've been dating a new person and that stuff has been coming up for me. And I've been challenging myself to be unashamed and to ask for support without any shame or guilt. And so this is a big deal for me because a lot of times when I ask people for support, when I tell people I'm anxious, if I'm like, hey, you know, I'm feeling a little anxious, like, would you mind reassuring me? Would you mind, you know, doing this or saying this? I feel a lot of guilt. I'm like, oh, something is wrong with me. I shouldn't be asking this. Like, why can't I deal with this? Why am I like this? All these different stories, right? But I've been doing, you know, you guys know, I've been doing all this mindset work now for a long time. And I'm really trying to just step out of guilt and step into this energy of I deserve support and I'm allowed to ask for support. And I've just been playing in this energy of like, what if I just asked people for what I needed or what I really wanted, right? And, you know, this stuff was coming up for me as I was hanging out with him last night. And I just kind of checked in with myself and I was like, you know, what would I want him to do to be supportive? Like, what kind of support would I want? And I really wanted him to reassure me around this specific thing. And so I just flat out told him, I was like, hey, I'm having a lot of anxiety come up for me right now around this and this. Like, you know, would you just mind if we had a conversation about it? I could use a little support and a little reassurance around that. And he was like, yeah, like he's totally fine with it, right? Not a big deal. But, you know, this has been such an issue for me in the past because I felt like people would think my anxiety was weird and I should like deal with everything on my own and I should be strong and I shouldn't rely on other people. And, you know, especially in dating, right? I feel like we tell ourselves all these stories. He's not gonna like me. I have to like, you know, keep a man, all those different weird stories, right? That come up around dating. But it just really made me feel good. And I just wanted to share that story in case it encourages you to just not be ashamed and just ask for what you need and what you want and just check in with yourself. You know, what kind of support could I use and who could I ask, right? And I just asked him in a way that was not a big deal, right? It wasn't a huge deal. I wasn't having a meltdown. I wasn't having a panic attack. I was just like, hey, you know, this anxiety and this fear is coming up for me right now. Like, would you be willing to have a conversation with me about it? I could use, you know, some support. I could use some reassurance, you know, and I think people appreciate that transparency. And I always feel like, especially in relationships, I always feel like when I'm vulnerable with people, when I'm willing to be vulnerable and I'm willing to be authentic, I give the other person or whoever is around permission for them to be vulnerable too. And I'm giving them permission, you know, to be authentic. So now, you know, because I've set that kind of tone in our, you know, relationship or whatever, our dating thing that we're doing, our partnership or whatever, you know, I've set that tone that we can talk about things openly, that we can talk about things that are uncomfortable, that it's safe for us to share when we're scared, right? And I always think that kind of always motivates me to step out of my comfort zone, right? Because I don't really like talking about stuff like that from my past. I don't really like sharing like that particular part of myself, right? It's not my favorite thing to talk about. But I always challenge myself to do it because I'm like, you know, if I want deep, authentic, meaningful, soulful relationships, I have to show up like that. Right? If I want a deep, soulful connection with someone, I have to be willing to be vulnerable and I have to show up the way I want my relationship to show up for me. Does that make sense? And so that always kind of pushes me past that fear when I think about that, because I stopped thinking about myself so much, where I'm like, what is he gonna think about me? And what does this mean about me? And it's all about me. And I start thinking about, I need to hold the space for other people. I need to make it safe, you know, for him to show up that way. I need to make it safe for other people to show up that way doing this video, right? I need to make it safe for you guys to share these kinds of experiences and to talk about these things, and, you know, to not feel alone. I need to hold space for other people. And that really motivates me, because I'm just really motivated by service and serving others, right? That's like my favorite thing, is like to be useful to other people. So when I'm not wanting to ask for support, when I'm not wanting to share something, and it's not about having to share things that you're not comfortable sharing, that's not what it's about, but it's about being willing to be vulnerable. And when you're willing to be vulnerable, you give other people permission to be vulnerable. When you're willing to have conversations, like tough conversations like that, you're making it safe and comfortable in your relationship. Hey Joy, how are you? You're making it safe and comfortable for the other person, for your partner or your friend or whoever, to show up that way too. And you're holding the space for that kind of dialogue. And that's very important to me. So when I feel like, you know, and it makes it less about me, where I'm like, oh, what does this mean about me and me and my anxiety and my stuff and it's just like, no, like, I want to be brave and vulnerable, and I'm willing to push myself outside of my comfort zone if that means having that kind of soulful connection with someone that I ultimately really want, right? I'm willing to be outside of my comfort zone. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to share my truth, which is sometimes, you know, especially when I'm dating someone new, that anxiety comes up for me, that fear comes up for me. And I think being able to express that without shame has been a really, really big, profound thing for me lately. So I just wanted to share that with you guys in case it inspires you, you know, to share vulnerably, to be able to ask for support, to let go of some of that shame, right? I used to carry so much guilt around like, you know, what's wrong with me, and I'm so messed up, and I have anxiety, all these stuff, like all these stories, right? I'm sure you guys probably tell yourselves different stories about different areas of your life too, right? And just letting go of that shame and just being like, you know, I love myself for who I am, and I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I want to be with someone that accepts me the way that I am. I don't want to date someone, you know, that's not willing to stand with me and not willing to have those kind of conversations with me. Like, that's not the partnership I want, right? So anyway, okay, I feel like I'm rambling. I'm gonna get off of here. I hope you guys are having a good day. Joy, I hope you're well. I'll talk to all of you guys soon, and I hope you guys have a good day.